What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what poverty is like in Norway. Now, Norway is known for being very wealthy. So today, I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at this Reddit discussion where someone asked, how does the average poor Norwegian live? That's a very interesting question to me. And I'm also curious, what does poor even mean in Norway? And how does poverty in Norway compare to what we think of as poverty in America here? So I want to take a look at this, and this person was asking, I know how rich Norway is, but I'm also aware that there are poor people everywhere, even in the richest countries. But how do you define poverty in Norway? How does people that are considered poor in Norway live? Do they starve? What kind of places are they living in? Do they have electricity? Can their kids go to school? Are their kids stunted? Yes, oh, wow. So this person's from Indonesia. Like literally children in Indonesia are like have stunted growth from like lack of nutrition. So yes, poverty is very very different in different parts of the world. And Norway is very interesting to me because I don't know, it's kind of a stereotype at this point that Norway is very very wealthy and that everyone in Norway is rich and wealthy, but that can't be true for everyone. So, for the poor people or lower class people in Norway, what is life like? Would that be kind of like what Americans think of as middle class? Or how does that work? Are there starving people in Norway? There are homeless and starving people in the United States, although there are ways to get government assistance here in the United States. Are there actually homeless, starving, poor, struggling Norwegians? Is that even a thing? Or has Norway as a country kind of like eliminated that? I'm very, very curious. So I want to take a look at some of the comments here that Norwegians have actually written about this question, about what poverty in Norway is like. And I want to compare that to the United States. So this person said, basic apartments or places to live are provided or paid for by the government. Enough money to live on is provided, nothing more. Wow. I mean, that is a big, big answer to my question. So, at worst in Norway, you're gonna be given somewhere to live, like an apartment or some place to live. The government will make sure that you have somewhere to live, which is fantastic. That's amazing. Now, I don't want to make America seem like the worst place in the world. We do have like very, very, very poor people, unfortunately. We have a lot of class division. We have the richest in the world, middle class. We have the poor, like some of the poorest people who are living paycheck to paycheck. But I don't know. Compared to like a third world country, where you're working every day to make like roof tiles out of mud so that you can buy a loaf of bread for dinner, where you're earning like $1 or $3 a day. That's a whole other type of existence. So certainly the United States is a lot more comfortable than that, but we still do have poor people who are struggling and in pain. And it seems like here in Norway, it's a bit better. You don't quite have that level of poverty, which is again fantastic. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, please. But people get a place to live. They'll get enough money to live on. So what that means, like enough money for food and stuff like that, enough to live. So I'm interested in what the Norwegian like government programs even look like. Like here in the United States, we have something called welfare. We have food stamps. We have things that the government gives you to make sure you can get food. And in some cases, the American government will give families money, especially if you have children in America. You can apply to get welfare benefits and checks and stuff like that, which is great. It's great that America has that. Yes, electricity, water, sanitation is catered for. Wow. Um, but it won't be the latest and greatest of furniture or interior. School is free. Yeah, wow. I mean, in America, we have public school. Yeah, basically, yeah. Every child in America has access to public school. Um, in Norway, man, so elementary school is free. High school is free. What about college and university, though? What else do we have here? I want to look at some of the other top comments. I grew up poor-ish. So this is someone in Norway who grew up poorish. Sort of poor. My mom had a job, but was single mom to 3 children. No help from our father, as he was so mad she left him that he would go no contact with the children. So this person grew up poor in Norway. We lived in a normal house in a rural town where houses were cheap. Wow. My mom got a loan from the bank to pay for her house. Uh, okay. So already, this doesn't really sound like a poor person in the United States. Like you live in a normal house. Maybe this is a benefit to like in Norway. There's a lot of rural areas that you can probably get pretty cheap housing. They were able to get a loan from the bank, which a lot of poor people in America, you can't get a loan if you don't have a good credit score or something. So the poverty in Norway manifested itself like this. Uh, we did not have money for sports or equipment. We did not always have enough food. We had bread and butter and nothing else for meals many days. No fruits except carrots and apples. A lot of soup. Okay, okay. This sounds pretty similar to what I would say a person in America living in poverty would be like. This actually sounds pretty similar here. Not having enough food, having to like survive on bread or butter or soup and stuff like that. So maybe poverty in Norway is more similar to poverty in the United States than I think. I think overall, like, the United States and Norway are two great places to live. Norway, probably a bit better, probably less poverty. But certainly, both of our countries are much more comfortable than a lot of other third world countries where people are really struggling, living in terrible living conditions, having to go to work as children, basically, to help your family live. No vacation. Wow. In Norway, I know that's a big deal. No vacation. I know that's a very big. So in Norway, it seems like if you're living in poverty in Norway, you're sort of okay, sort of comfortable, but you're losing out on a lot of the sort of special things that Norwegians enjoy, like having great food, vacation. I know vacation is very important in Norway. You probably don't have a cabin, right? That's very popular in Norway. We slept in tents in the woods every now and then. Oh my God. No new clothing. We could get free items from a secondhand shop. Her car would stop working in the winter, and years later, people from my hometown tell me that the truest sign of winter each year was to see that car stranded on the side of the road. Oh my God. Their car wouldn't work in the winter. What I remember the most was feeling of being hungry. Wow. And being left out from activities the rest of kids my age were doing. Wow. As soon as I was allowed, I started doing jobs, had my first job at 12. Yeah, okay, so if this is in Norway, um, then this is a pretty good like example of what poverty in Norway looks like. And I'd say it's bad. It's definitely struggling. It's definitely struggling. Um, I don't know. It's probably pretty comparable to poverty in the United States, actually, as far as food and housing and struggling and broken down cars, trying to get a job when you're 12. Yeah, it's pretty comparable, actually. So I would say so far, this is sort of shattering or disproving the stereotype that there's no poverty in Norway, there's just no poor people in Norway. That's not true. There are. There are people struggling in Norway, which is kind of what I was hoping to learn here today. What else do we have? I am poor by all definitions. After tax, I take home 14,000 to 16,000 NOK each month. I'd like to know what this means in US dollars. 1,492? Like $1,500 a month. Wow! $1,500 a month is difficult to live on in the United States. That's very difficult. It's doable. It certainly is. Um, when I was working my first job out of college, like I was probably earning something. I was earning something around that as like a single guy living in an apartment. Earning, yeah, you can definitely survive on 1,500. But if I had a family or wanted a house or nice things at that time in my life, that would have been impossible. So this is like 1,500 US dollars, which is like 15,000 NOK in Norway. Although I'm not sure if you can get as much in Norway for 1,500 US dollars because stuff is more expensive in Norway, right? So having 1,500 US dollars in Norway, it's probably tougher to get stuff. And I'm not sure how much rent would cost. I think I was able to find some place to rent for like 700 to 800 US dollars a month, which is pretty good. So I could survive alone on that. I was denied housing help, as they said any public housing they can provide starts at 10,000 each a month in rent, and I can't afford that. Wow. So the Norwegian government, like, you have to sort of satisfy certain conditions to get aid. That's how it is here in America. If you want government assistance, you need to satisfy certain conditions. You need to earn a certain amount of money under the poverty level, or you need to have children or a disability, and then you can apply for government assistance. I'm very curious about what government aid is like in Norway, because Norway, I've heard, has a lot of really great social welfare programs, right? But this person was denied housing help because he couldn't even afford that. I was denied assistance with paying for rent, as they have a cap on 5,000 each a month for that. So if your rent is 4,999, they'll pay it entirely. But if it's 6,000, you get nothing. Wow, okay, yes, 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 I see what's being said here. Unfortunately, in Norway, uh, you might be okay if you're very, very, very poor. But if you're kind of poor, then you actually don't get as much help. You don't qualify for help, which makes sense to me. I think there's stuff like that in the United States. So it's actually almost better to earn less than to earn sort of less, if that makes sense. Because then you don't get any assistance, which is what happened to this person. That was what I was told multiple times. But if I ended up homeless, they could book a hotel for me for however long that was needed. They'll book a hotel for you if you're homeless. Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. I luckily managed to find somewhere for 9,000 with internet, heating, electricity. Okay, interesting. Sounds like he'd also get some. He had some healthcare issues, but I was refused supplementary income due to higher food cost. So they didn't help him much with his health problems. What is this? I applied for Bostote? Bostote? What is this? Maybe I can look this up. Um, it's a Norwegian word that translates to housing benefit. It refers to a payment made by a government to people who are eligible based on a certain criteria, such as poverty. This is a government payment? Yes, this is money that the government gives Norwegians. It helps you pay for rent if you are unemployed or low income. Got it. Bostøtte. Sort of like welfare in America. Okay. He applied for this. It is support for people on low income. When I was unemployed, I got the same amount of money I have now. I was approved and got 3 to 4 thousand extra each month. Okay, so he did get the assistance. Now I'm employed. I'm no longer eligible due to the fact that my pay is apprentice pay. Wow. So I think this is true in America as well. If you are just not earning any money, if you are just poor and gonna be homeless, you can apply for government help. But as soon as you start making some money, you might not be eligible. And that seems to be the same in Norway as well. Although in America, there are people who are just straight up homeless living on the street. Um, and I guess there's probably ways they could try to apply for aid, but for whatever reason they don't. Possibly if they have like a drug addiction or they, for whatever reason, there is a homeless issues in many cities in America for sure. Very sad. Real poverty does exist in Norway, but we don't have slums like other countries. Okay, this is interesting. This is what I want to know as well. I would agree with this for America. We don't have like slums, but we have like very low income areas of the United States, certainly, where people are living on the street and it's very high crime. And it's not quite called a slum, but there are some pretty bad places in the United States. Pretty bad. Yeah. Poor people in Norway do go to bed hungry, have more health issues, and some are homeless. Wow. A lot of Norwegians refuse to believe it, but that's because they are spoiled and don't have any insight. They are brainwashed and chauvinistic. Wow. Tell me how you really think. Oh my God. Be very honest right there. Do Norwegians have trouble coming to terms with this, or is this just a fact of life that even in Norway, you have homeless people? People go to bed hungry. I'm glad some Norwegians are really answering this question honestly, because I was tempted to believe that Norway, because Norway is so rich, so wealthy, so successful, maybe Norway had found a way to just get rid of poverty, and everyone is middle class. No one goes to bed hungry, but that's not true. Not quite true. People have pretty much all their physical needs met. They might live in a smaller apartment, but I would seldom think more than 2 kids in a room. Poverty in Norway is mostly that they can't afford nice clothing, vacations, a car, and such. Being poor is a physiological problem mostly. A lot of the poor are poor because of physical or psychological issues. Interesting. This is interesting. So this makes it seem like, I don't know, it's comparable to America. Being poor is a struggle in the United States, and you can be in pain, you can be living paycheck to paycheck, starving some days, but you can probably find somewhere to live. You can probably get some government assistance. You're not going to have the best clothing or go on vacation or maybe even not even have a car. And that seems to be very, very similar to how it is in Norway. Perhaps there's less of this in Norway, especially since Norway has a smaller population, of course. But I would think this is more of a widespread problem in the United States for sure. There's some kind of crazy statistic like 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Some of those Americans are like rich and just bad with money, but it's pretty shocking. So I know a lot of Americans are struggling. And I was just curious what it's like in Norway and what poverty is like in Norway and what Norwegians think about it. So I thought this was a really interesting topic to take a look at. It's not really something you ever hear about with Norway. Out of all the videos I've done learning about Norway, I've never seen anyone talk about poverty or seen like examples of poor Norwegians. I've never seen that. So this is kind of a more taboo topic, I guess, which is why I was quite fascinated by it, and I'm glad some of the Norwegians kind of left honest comments about it, because it is a touchy topic. So I enjoyed learning about this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on poverty in Norway or any of the things discussed here or anything I misunderstood. That'd be fantastic. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting and learning about Norway for the first time, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.